the queen is also having a very nice partnership with the knight, and together they can create various mating threats, and it's a really very dangerous pair. It's demonstrated also in this case, in these samples. Fiddler with the white pieces against Epician from the World Championship 1997. The first thing that Fiddler does is to give a check with the rook, and after king d7, well, this rook on h8 is defended, he cannot win it, but what he can do is to trade his two rooks for the queen, and we are back in our team. After rook c7, rook takes and king takes c7, queen c3 check. Black's problem is that his rooks are not working ideally, especially the one on b6 is a very bad piece at the moment. It is excluded from the other forces, and it's very hard for Black to defend it. If he goes, for instance, king d6, he is losing it immediately after queen c5. This fork, and if it goes instead of that on b8, then queen c5 is very unpleasant. The only way to save the rook is to go king a7, but now the rook is unpleasantly pinned, and all white needs to do is to bring this knight closer and to take it. He is doing it like that, knight b2, with two possible lines. If rook d8, knight a4, and rook d6 is bringing another piece on the stupid b6 square, which can be used by white simply playing for Zugzwang with the move f4, and there is nothing that Black can do. None of his pieces is moving anywhere. The knight is restricted by the pawns, and the rook is blocked on b6, and the king has to defend the rook, so this is Zugzwang and Black is losing. And if instead of that Black tries to defend by bringing the knight over instead of the rook with knight e5, which is more logical, still this wouldn't help, as white will go knight a4, say knight c4, knight takes b6, knight takes b6, and now queen c3 is creating a double threat. The usual thing, either this check to win the knight, or to take the pawn on g7, and once that he is winning the pawn on g7, all the pawns will fall on the king side as well, so Black is completely helpless in this case. None of this happened in the game. Black played instead of that king d7, but king d7 is allowing the decisive inclusion of this knight into the game. White goes knight c5 check. Now the king of course cannot step on the c file because of the discover check, and the rook would be lost. The king went instead of that on d6. It's not a big difference where exactly is it going, if it is d8 or d6. And now comes the decisive blow, knight takes b7 check. Of course Black cannot take it because of queen c6 check, and the rook would be lost. So here the pawn, the queen, and the knight are creating decisive threats. King d7 was the move tried by Epician, but then white played queen c5 and forced his opponent anyway to take on b7. Then check, king moved on e7, the rook is gone, king moved to f6, and that pawn is too dangerous, it will cause Black more material. Black resigned after d4, queen c7, d3, king f1 to deal with the pawn, knight e5 and b7. The pawn cannot be stopped, while the d3 one can be easily blocked by the king, and Black resigned.